What is up, Gig Nation? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be looking at possibly the biggest mistake that you can be making as a delivery driver, a shopper, or a rideshare driver. Today we're going to be talking about insurance. This is going to be a complete guide to what exactly each platform is going to provide you as far as coverage when you are working in the gig economy. We're going to be looking at the delivery apps, the shopping apps, and the rideshare apps. Now, a lot of these apps have actually stepped up big time in the past few years to start providing adequate insurance for workers. Uber and Lyft do a lot to cover workers to fill in those gaps. In the past, there was a gap between when you had a rider in your car. They've actually stepped up to provide some insurance during those times. But there are other big companies in the gig economy that are providing zero insurance for independent contractors. Now, they require you to have your own personal vehicle insurance before you sign up, but they don't actually check if it's the right kind of insurance, if this insurance will provide any sort of commercial liability. So you could find yourself in a position where you have insurance, but it doesn't actually cover you. And one of the biggest names in delivery, DoorDash, while they do provide insurance, they do not provide insurance unless you have food in your car. So once you've picked up an offer to the point where you're dropping it off at your customer, during that time, you're covered by their policy. All other times, you have no coverage. So we're going to break down the specifics of each of these companies, when you are covered, when you aren't covered, and what kind of coverage you have when you are covered by them. We're also going to take a look at some of the biggest insurance providers in the US and how they've stepped up during the COVID-19 pandemic to provide additional insurance to delivery drivers and to shoppers. Essentially, if you have a personal vehicle insurance plan through these big names, you're automatically covered for delivery insurance. So hopefully by the end of this guide, you'll know exactly what your platform is providing for you. You'll know if your personal insurance is adequate enough, and you'll know where to look to find a reasonable insurance plan if you don't have one that's covering you, so that you can avoid potentially losing thousands of dollars while you're delivering food. All right, let's go ahead and hop into the list. We're going to start off with DoorDash because this is the most popular food delivery platform out there, and they do provide insurance for their delivery drivers. Dashers are covered while they have food in their vehicle. It's very important to understand that once you've accepted an offer, that does not necessarily mean that you are covered by DoorDash's insurance policy. Once you've actually arrived at the restaurant, picked up that food, brought it back into your car, that is when the coverage commences. And it then ends after you've dropped off that food at your customer's address. And during this time, you are covered by a $1 million commercial auto insurance policy. But that coverage is for third parties that are injured. So essentially, if you get into an accident and someone else in the other car is hurt, or there is property damage to their vehicle or property damage to something outside of your vehicle, that insurance policy is going to cover them. So let's break down what is important here. DoorDash does require that you have personal vehicle insurance. If you don't have any insurance, then this coverage that DoorDash is providing while you have food in your car, well, that could be entirely voided. But even if you do have personal vehicle insurance, you may not be covered for the damage to your own vehicle, for the damage to your body if you're in an accident. And you're definitely not going to be covered if you get into an accident outside of the time frame when you would have food in the vehicle. So if you have a standard personal auto insurance policy that does not cover delivery driving and you're driving for DoorDash, you could be left on the hook for thousands of dollars in damages. But as I previously mentioned, a lot of the big name insurance companies are providing insurance for delivery drivers during COVID-19. So if you just have that normal personal vehicle insurance, all of a sudden you're going to get coverage that you wouldn't normally be getting. And make sure to stay tuned for that because I'm going to name what those companies are later on in the video. You're going to want to take these down because if your insurance company does not offer any sort of delivery insurance and you're not getting that, once again, you could be on the hook for massive amounts of damages. Okay, now let's look at Uber Eats insurance. And what applies to Uber Eats drivers also applies to Uber drivers, and it's essentially the same as Lyft. So we're kind of going to cover all of these at once so that I don't waste too much of your time going through details that I'm just going to repeat later. So Uber Eats, Uber, and Lyft, in my personal opinion, have the best form of insurance for independent contractors. I'm really impressed by what they have done in the past few years to step up, and hopefully other companies follow suit. So essentially, Uber Eats provides $1 million in commercial auto insurance, and this coverage is during deliveries. So, once you've accepted a delivery, Uber is going to start providing this coverage for you. And not only does it cover third parties, but it is also going to cover you. So if you're in an accident, Uber just has a $1,000 deductible, and they will actually reimburse the full cash value of the vehicle if that vehicle is destroyed in an accident. But in order for this insurance to work, once again, you do have to have your own personal vehicle insurance. If you do not have it, then Uber's insurance may not cover you. This is a requirement when you're signing up to deliver with Uber Eats and drive with Uber. They're going to keep your document on file and remind you when it expires, so it is really difficult to end up delivering on the app or driving for Uber without this insurance. And as I mentioned, this Uber Eats insurance is the same as Uber insurance. So when you're driving with Uber and you have a rider, you've picked up and accepted a ride, you now have that same $1 million policy that's really going to keep you safe in the event of any incident. Between deliveries, when you haven't actually accepted an offer and you're looking for offers in the app, the same applies to rides with Uber. Uber is going to provide a $50,000 policy for each bodily injury, so up to 2 bodily injuries for 2 different parties, $100,000 total, and then $25,000 towards property and vehicle damage. Now, this insurance only kicks in if a driver's personal vehicle insurance denies them coverage during this time. And as I mentioned before, a lot of personal policies are not going to provide coverage during this time. So it is very critical that Uber has stepped up and Lyft has stepped up, and they've started to provide these protections when you're in between rides and when you're in between deliveries. Now, you may be wondering, if I get into an accident and I'm in between deliveries and I'm on an app, maybe I just turn my app off real quick, I don't have any sort of delivery bag in the car, or I hide it, how is my insurance company going to find out that I was delivering? I can probably just squeak by and no one's gonna realize this, and then my personal vehicle insurance is going to cover me. Here is why that is a flawed approach. There's actually a lot of companies out there that have specifically designed platforms so that insurance providers can sign in and they can request that you, if you're covered and you're filing a claim, log into any sort of delivery app, shopping app, or a rideshare app that you work with, and they're going to pull up all of your records. They're going to show exactly when you were on the app down to the minute. So one of these companies is called Argyle.io, and they work with a lot of the major insurance providers. So don't think that you're just gonna sneak by if you get into an accident. You should have a plan up front because you really don't want to be in a position where you're in an accident and you're not covered. Let's say you're delivering with DoorDash and you don't have food in your car, and you didn't realize that your personal vehicle insurance isn't going to cover you during this time. They're probably going to find out. So, you got to make sure that you have the right form of insurance here. And in just a couple of minutes, I'm going to be naming those big major providers that are stepping up and providing delivery insurance and insurance to shoppers during the pandemic. But before I get into that, let's talk about 2 companies, one delivery app and one shopping app, that provide 0 coverage for their independent contractors. This is really sad that neither of these companies have stepped up. Technically speaking, they don't actually have to provide insurance. That's part of being an independent contractor. You have to provide all of this stuff on your own. But as we've seen, there's been a lot of pressure from politicians, from certain states, certain cities, people basically asking these companies to step up and provide more benefits, more coverage, or they're not going to let these companies operate within those locations. So Grubhub and Instacart really haven't done much here. They provide no insurance to shoppers, no insurance to their delivery drivers. If you are working with one of these apps, it's important that you don't just have personal vehicle insurance. That's all that they're gonna ask of you. They're just gonna ask that you have personal insurance, but you need to know if that insurance actually covers you while you're delivering and while you're shopping. Because if they do not, once again, there is no period on either of these apps where you have any sort of coverage through the platform. This is all on you to figure it out. Okay, so now let's take a look at some of the big name insurance providers that have stepped up to provide additional coverage beyond their normal personal vehicle insurance programs for those that are driving, delivering, and shopping during the pandemic. Now, it's important to note that some of these major carriers have differences between states. Some of them started these additional programs at the beginning of the pandemic and actually ended them a little while back, while others continue to provide that coverage. So it's important to do your own due diligence and to actually call up these companies if you're insured with them, talk to them, ask them if they're still providing that delivery and shopper insurance, or if you're thinking about switching to them, call them first and talk to them. So there's actually 6 of these companies that have stepped up to provide that additional insurance, of which I know of. And those are Allstate, Farmers Insurance, Progressive, Liberty Mutual, Travelers, and USAA. So if you deliver for Grubhub, Instacart, or DoorDash, and you're not sure if your personal vehicle insurance is providing the adequate insurance that you need, you should definitely start doing some research. I would start with these 6 companies, talk to them, see what they're currently providing, and when the specials end, what their rates are for that additional coverage. Also, if you're looking for a free tool to help you sort through and compare different insurance quotes, including insurance companies that actually provide coverage to delivery drivers, shoppers, and rideshare drivers, I'm going to leave a link down below. It's one of the tools that I like to use. It's absolutely free to use, but feel free to do your own research. There's no need to go through a comparison tool when you can find everything online yourself as well. If you have any questions about insurance in the gig economy, leave a comment down below. I'll do what I can to answer it for you, and hopefully other people can kind of jump in and provide some knowledge based upon their experience delivering in the gig economy. But once again, this just felt like such an important topic because everyone is delivering, driving, and shopping to make money, but we don't want to put ourselves in a position where we could actually end up losing a lot more money than we're making. If you found this video useful, make sure to hit that like button so that it gets out to other gig economy workers, and make sure that they get the right kind of insurance too. Also, subscribe to this channel for all of the latest gig economy news and coverage, the essentials and basics that you need to know before you start delivering, shopping, or driving.